Hey folks, man, this is Monk, and we are back with another episode of Classics of Cinematics, and I'm joined as always with my co-host. We got Bobby Blockbuster.
Yo.
Yeah, folks, today we're going to be looking at a classic in the horror realm, man. So today we've got Clive Barker's Hellraiser from 1987, and it's categorized here as a horror fantasy. I don't know how you get fantasy.
Yeah, I wouldn't fantasize about none of the stuff going on in this, but to each his own.
This is a wild film, man. So let's go into this synopsis real quick. A sexual deviant, Frank, inadvertently opens a portal to hell when he tinkers with a box he bought while abroad. The act unleashes gruesome beings called Cenobites who tear Frank's body apart. When Frank's brother and his wife Julia move into Frank's old house, they accidentally bring what is left of Frank back to life. Frank then convinces Julia, his one-time lover, to lure men back to the house so he can use their blood to reconstruct himself. And this is directed by Clive Barker. Actually, it was a September release, so this probably rolling into October, Halloween
time,
that year. And this is an interesting thing. Let's get into this cast. So we've got Doug Bradley as the notorious Pinhead. We get Ashley Lawrence, who plays Christy. I think that's the daughter of the couple.
Yep.
Clare Higgins. We get Sean Chapman, who plays Frank. Andrew Robinson, who plays Larry, who's Julia's husband, Frank's brother. We get Simon Bamford. And we also get Nicholas Vince, Oliver Smith, and there's a few more people in here. Pamela Sholto. Honestly, this is a small cast in movies, so a lot of these people are just there in the background.
But it makes sense though, because this is a real condensed film, all the way across the board. So
very low budget, small production. They did. This is a $1 million budget. Honestly, I would have thought it cost a little bit more.
But
so
not for
they squeezed a lot out of this.
But they pulled back $20 million. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, spend $1, get 20 back.
Shit,
I'll do that all day.
What?
Yeah, man. So let's get into it, man. What are we liking about this thing, man?
First and foremost, I like that this is Clive Barker's injection into the horror genre on screen. We get our Wes Cravens and we get, John Carpenter and everything, and this is his staple in this genre, and I think that's really cool. And following the same footsteps as like Stephen King, this film was actually based off of a novella called The Hellbound Heart, which the book actually hits a little bit heavier than this film, but I think the portrayal of this story on screen, it does justice, with what they were working with, you know what I mean? But with that being said, what stands out to me most about this film is we get another iconic horror figure in Pinhead, you know what I mean? With, as with Michael Myers with Jason, they have the mask, but the thing that separates Pinhead from them, he kind of follows this same blueprint as Freddy Krueger, whereas, it's more about the actor, the face, you know what I'm saying, which Freddy Krueger is like Robert Englund, if it ain't Robert Englund playing Freddy, it just don't hit. Well, that's what Doug Bradley is to Pinhead, you know what I mean? It doesn't hit the same without them. And the cool thing about them also is that they don't just kill you or mess. They talk shit the whole way, you know what I'm saying? Pinhead's a very intellectual.
A little bit.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this that they're leaving out of the setup. I mean, he's a sexual deviant, Frank. So I think that's one interesting aspect of a story that did, kind of pique my interest because and I think the film kind of short sells really what's going on with him with that, because he's basically a guy that's just explore every extreme sexual pleasure in life, and eventually, he's traveling the world. That seems to be his whole thing, and pushing it as far as he could go. He's experimented with sadomasochism, but then in his mind, he's done everything. Like what's left after you've experienced everything? So he tracks down the box, which is promising even more pleasures, and that's where Pinhead comes in. And with Pinhead, they're supposed to be these beings that are bent on exploring extreme pain and pleasure.
Yes.
And to them, they're one and the same.
Yes.
You know, so I could see someone, like Frank being drawn to this, but I think where the film sells it short is we don't get that build up with Frank, man. That's one thing that stands out because, like, I will point out to the people watching. This is my first time, watching this thing. And I was like, I needed more of that, yo. Give me more of an idea who Frank was, and maybe that could help explain a little bit more. By doing that, we also get more of an idea of what Pinhead and his crew are,
Right.
Like,
well, and that's the thing. Like they kind of use Pinhead and the Cenobites as like the golden arches. You know, so you see it from a distance, but it lures you into the restaurant to then explore the menu and things like that. Which I'm like you, I would have liked to see more of Pinhead and the Cenobites. But that also I thought was a cool element. Whereas in all of the other horror films in this era in the 80s, everybody works solo. Whereas Pinhead, he's got this crew with him. You got Chatter, the teeth guy, Butterball, the woman, and it's kind of like he's running point. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really cool. But when we get down to the meat and potatoes of this story, I mean, it's really focused around Frank and his sexual deviancies, and then also this element that he had some kind of dealings with Julia, who's Larry's wife. I mean,
they was boning.
Yeah, they was having an affair.
An affair that was also an emotional affair. It wasn't just sex, because
she's hooked in it. Like right when they move into this house, she instantly has this flashback. Apparently, right after Julia gets married to Larry, Frank just shows up at the door and is like, oh yeah, let me kiss the bride, and they start getting their thing on, and that's how he is able to then start to manipulate her when he starts to, manifest in the attic and everything.
It's those parts are definitely, I think, like this thing is, to me, I feel like the strengths of it are the concept, the ideas that it's bringing, especially, dealing, you kind of treading into that BDSM, I think this is probably, it's not like this film was super mainstream, but enough the horror community saw it, and to be putting this, the BDSM, sadomasochism, and bringing that to the screen as an element that could be an element of horror, because the interesting thing about this box, it seems like somehow it always comes back to this wherever he bought it from, for the next person to buy. And I get a feeling like, even though what happened to Frank, like I feel like some of the people find a box and Pinhead and them destroy them, and that's like they love it. Even though they're getting torn apart and killed, ultimately, that's part of their experience of finding the highest level of pain and pleasure that they can experience.
In essence, bro, it's kind of like the genie lamp. You know what I'm saying? With the wishes, like there's a part when Pinhead is like, to some were angels, to others were demons. You know what I'm saying? Because it really is just on the eye of the beholder and what it is that you're actually trying to experience.
And what your level is. Yeah. Because I feel like there's some people who they've experienced everything they can on Earth, and when they get to Pinhead, it's like, I wanted another level, but I didn't want to go that far.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want you to shoot the spawn chains at me and start ripping my flesh off. But then
there's some people who are probably in ecstasy as that's happening to them. So that's kind of interesting. That's an interesting concept.
And
here.
Also, like I said, with this being taking place in 87, we're not... Like now, tattoos and piercings and body scarification is almost, it's a norm. People are used to seeing it in various forms. But back in the 80s...
Plus the internet has gotten this stuff accessible, more accessible to people.
But back in the 80s, people were not used to seeing that. If you had tattoos, you already... There was an assumption about you that was already made as soon as you walk in the room, or body piercings or whatever the case may be. So to have these Cenobites looking this way and then doing these things, maiming these bodies in this particular way, I thought it was a really cool approach. But and
then it's interesting too that this comes out 87, 86 we get The Fly, so we're like, it's almost like we're entering a interesting phase of body horror, based the horror films, and this is part of that too, man. I don't think it's as well done as The Fly, but but it's definitely treading in that territory, especially when we're seeing how the Frank state most of the movie. We see him be resurrected from that one drop of blood and steadily trying to get more human as Julia brings him more victims to reconstruct them.
And that's the thing too that I like. Like, even though the film, I feel, lost focus on Pinhead and the Cenobites, it really leans heavy in this like kind of like psychotic slasher vibe with you got Julia bringing these guys back. I mean, she's bludgeoning them with hammers so Frank can I guess suck their blood out of them, get their life force.
But that's the thing, man. Like, honestly, from me looking at this now, honestly, I don't think Pinhead was the focal. They were part of the story, but this thing was about Frank and Julia.
Yes,
and I think Pinhead's appearance was so striking and became such a hit with the fans that the subsequent sequels put him to the forefront.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? He's getting way more scenery. Like in other films, he's there. He's there through the whole movie, popping up like with them delivering them crazy bars. I'm gonna crush your soul.
Exactly. No, but no, you're absolutely right. Because even with reading the book, the focal point is Frank and Julia and what's going on in this household. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Whereas, like you said, Pinhead. I mean, but he's the headliner. He's the, at this point when you're competing up against, your Michael Myers, your Jasons, your Freddys, even Chucky, for crying out loud. Every successful horror franchise, if you want to make it elongated, you have to have the face, and Pinhead is the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand why. But I don't know, man. Like I said, the hindsight, this thing, like there's parts of it I don't think aged well. Like when we're looking at the narrative, like as I'm looking now at the pet shop scene with the daughter, and I'm just like, there are things in here that are supposed to give us atmosphere and creepiness, but at the same time, they're done in a way that just kind of add confusion to some of the moment to moment, narrative and the plotting, and you're just like, why was this thrown in? I mean,
it never makes sense when the homeless guy goes in there and he just walks in and he's a face full of crickets.
And then even later on,
why are you doing that?
Like the scene where she's walking into the room and the bed is all bloody, and it's like, I get it. Maybe you're trying to indicate that this house has something disturbing going on, but I think it would have just been cool just to focus on just Frank being there. But even that's also weird. You moving into this new house and no one's thinking of, maybe I could use this attic for storage or this room, and he's in there. At first I thought maybe he was in there in a different space, maybe in a different realm, but he's in there. There's moments where, you hear that?
That's the thing. He's kind of at first he's like in limbo, but then when Larry goes in there bleeding and everything, and the floor drinks the blood, then he manifests, which I did like that. Okay, I thought that was really cool how it starts to boil and then looks like this that was spider cool. thing kind of coming back
to life. Yeah,
and we watch Frank's slow regeneration. But yeah, you're right. Like it's they never really clarify like, is he actually coming back to human form, or is he a demon, or is he just like
I think he's trying to get back to human. I mean, at least he says it enough, but then at the same time it's like
he's still demonic.
He advances a lot from that and first time we see him to him getting, and then it's like
he had no feet. He was just like a spine squirming around.
Yeah, but he's getting better. But then there's a point where toward the end where she keeps bringing him guys and you're like, maybe one more would do it, and this is like three more, and he's still looking. Still kind of, I'm like,
that's where
can he even really come fully back?
That's where it kind of feels to me like almost like Dracula in a sense, where he's just like he's got Julia so wrapped around his finger because she's just hoping like, oh, I'm gonna bring you back, and then we're gonna run off and have this love affair together. Screw Larry, which I think that's just really messed up because like Larry's just like oblivious to everything that's going on.
I'm also a bit confused. They keep saying he's the one that got away, and I'm like, how? Like maybe because they didn't get that last little bit of essence of him out when they took the rest of his pieces out.
Yeah, well,
that's weird.
Even at the beginning, they're piecing him back together. Yeah. I mean, was he such a sexual deviant that like ripping him apart into little pieces was so pleasurable to him that it didn't kill him?
Like that's the part to me at least that didn't make sense. Like I said, like it like this is a first director's film from a guy who hasn't directed before, and you kind of could tell. Like, and there's a little bit of I guess plot holes to me. Like, especially when the daughter has that confrontation, And why did she decide to grab the box? There was no reason for her to know that was something like that. Didn't make sense to me. It was
like what if it wasn't a box? What if it was an empty beer can?
It's like we're just arguing, and I just grab your Fosters and
don't do that. No, give it back.
So I mean, like I said, man, it's aged bad in those regards. Like, and I've seen so many movies now. Maybe if I saw this in '87, I wouldn't even have cared. I'd have just been so blown away by it. But I've seen a lot of shit now.
That's the thing. And that's where, like, with this film, dude, honestly, like, the story is not the focal point. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's really about, the emergence and our first, encounter with Pinhead and the Cenobites. But then it's also these visual effects, you know what I'm saying? Like, not just... some of the special effects that you can tell that they didn't age as well, but this makeup, the makeup effects, I mean, the look of Pinhead and the guys.
Frank is pretty good too for most of the movie. Dude, like most of his.
He never really fully manifests either. Like when he finally comes to full fruition, he actually had to kill Larry and then put his skin on, which that's also messed up. Like I said, I mean, Julia, what are you thinking? Like.
That's crazy to me.
You let him kill your husband at the end of it all to wear his skin, and then you're gonna just continue living life.
That's where I think the more setup with Frank would have paid off. Maybe if we saw her running around the world with him looking for those pleasures, because they kind of shortcut it when she finds the bundle of pictures, the photos, and even now
it wasn't even her.
I'm looking at, but still, I guess it's supposed to show Frank and some of his sexual exploits. And even I'm looking at them photos, I'm like, man, this shit kind of tame. It just looks like a guy that's out there, and
he's wearing a mask and he took some head.
Yeah, and he took a couple freaky pictures.
I guess in the 80s, sexual deviancy is different.
It don't look like this. Like, if you made this movie now, I feel like them pictures would look way... It'd be like,
yes. The internet makes things a lot... Yes, it's opened a lot more doors. It is the damn box.
Yeah, I feel like I said, man, it's interesting to have this material on the screen, but at the same time, it is kind of like how Hollywood does in a lot of ways when they depict subversive elements, like they usually they'll put it in there, but a lot of times it's just with broad brushstrokes. They're not getting into the minutia or representing it in a realistic manner.
Absolutely not. I mean, well, they had to keep it tame because I mean, when this film before it got all the way edited, it had an X rating, not just because of the subject matter, but because of the brutality in the graphics. I mean, like I said, with these effects, I like what we get with the horror element as far as like, the creatures, like I said, the makeup effects and everything. But dude, every time she bludgeons someone with a hammer, it looks, I mean, that's body horror that we haven't seen up in this style at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first time she hits with the hammer, dude, she knocks his jaw sideways and his teeth come out.
I think for this era, this was still kind of like part of this thing, man. It kind of reminds me of like, those Giallo style Italian films that were coming out in the 70s with the crazy, just violent elements, and it looks like he was kind of imitating some of that with Julia running around doing what she's doing to these men,
and that's another thing too. I feel like if they would have just been a little more focused, like this one. Whereas when you get your horror iconic films, They have tunnel vision, where this one, it kind of hits on the paranormal slightly, kind of hits on the psychotic, kind of hits on the slasher.
But it's confusing.
And because it's so jumbled and so it's incohesive, you know what I mean? It almost plays like we're watching two films in one. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole first 70% we're engulfed in this like the situation between Julia and Frank, and that just kind of seems like that's okay. But where does Pinhead really come in? Where's the box? Yeah. Where's the
like
where's
I said, man,
stuff going on?
I don't think Pinhead was the focal of this when this thing was intended when this first film was made.
He's the one on the cover. He's the advertisement. He's the one who draws us in.
Yeah, because you're giving us like that freaky image, because he's also rocking the leather S&M kind of gear. He's giving you that image. But the funny thing is, I'm looking at this thing in the back. I do like I think Frank and Julia is what holds this together, man. Because that part of it is cool. Like when I'm looking at, and you said she's bringing these guys to him, but that makes sense that Frank would just want to switch spots with What's the brother's
with Larry.
name? With Larry, because think about that's perfect. Then he could be as Larry. They're already people know them as married, and he'd be able to just walk around with her in the open.
When he converts over though, then he starts getting all like weirdo with the daughter and stuff. It's just, I mean, and that's another thing. I'm just like, dude, you know, come on. Yeah,
it looks weird because now he's in Larry's.
He's like, yeah, you know, I've always loved you. You know, it's like, come on with the weird.
That makes sense though.
He's a deviant, so he's got to be incestive too.
It's weird because he's wearing the father's thing, but honestly, he's a scumbag. We know that from early on. Like,
you know what?
You know, just the way Frank is reacting when she mentions him earlier.
On that note, too, Andrew Robinson, he did a great job, like in his dual role, because like I said, the first 70% of the film, he's the unsuspecting husband. He's just like trying to make things right with Julia, and he's like, oh, you know, I don't like the sight of blood. Oh, help me, and then just caring and giving and just trying to make the relationship work while his wife is, you know, making moves with the skinless guy in the attic and shit.
He probably hit too, man.
Yeah, she's all sucking his fingers. He don't even got skin, dog. What is all that weird goo going on? My man puts a shirt on, his blood seeps through. It's weird.
And then jumps back in the bed with Larry.
Yeah, it's Larry, and then out comes Frank. I'm gonna cut this rat right in front of you if you continue to screw your husband. But you know, but then when Larry ends up being Frank, like his tonal shift, like the way for him as an actor, you know what I'm saying, to just kind of give us this one side, but then, you know, he fully embodies the role of Frank and gets all creepy and stuff. So I mean, that's just testament to good acting. I mean, he is probably the best actor on screen, you know, throughout the course of this film, because even Doug Bradley, he's still just a face. I mean, Pinhead only has a few lines. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, what he says is significant.
He got about maybe 5-8 minutes of screen time.
And the other ones don't say next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this though too, man. Going back into the you know, the elements that I really do like of this, like the effects work, I think is good for the time period, and like especially when we seen that early scene where they show Frank getting torn apart, and like I thought that was pretty cool because it starts off, you know, we see the hooks come out. That's another guy, right? No, that is Frank. No. That is Frank. When the hooks come out, but then later on, we actually see, you know, what happened when, you know, and they show that.
Yeah, they show Pinhead piecing them back together and stuff. Yeah.
And it's crazy, yo. It's like some wild imagery, man. So that was pretty effective. Really is. And also I like later on the chase and the hunt, those scenes where we're going through the house and they're opening doors, peeling back the walls, the Cenobites coming out, and you get some really cool like just design work.
You really do, and I like that. Like they said, when I was looking into like what they did with the effects, they used a lot of like lubricants and they said that the special effects crew was always kind of like, damn, when they had to go get more props, because they said they used a lot of condoms and lube to get this shiny effect and all this stuff. So they always felt like weird, you know, going to the store and getting, you know, oh, let me get these condoms in bulk. Like,
I mean, you didn't have Amazon in effect right there. No. And also, I feel like nowadays there is like an industrial machine behind the FX industry, so you can get the stuff sent to you in bulk, and, you know, just direct to your studio or direct to your set.
I mean, this is also.
But now you're improvising.
This is a testament.
You're inventing a lot of these things that would become
legwork, imagination.
Standard.
Yes, and I mean, and they're doing these things hands on. I mean, and it for the most part it portrays well. You know what I'm saying? Like one of my favorite scenes, like I said, is when that blood hits the floor and it looks like the floor drinks the blood up, and then this creature just emerges from it.
Yeah, especially I thought that was a pretty cool scene when Frank's coming back in immersion and the rib cage and all that stuff reforming, and that stuff's pretty cool, man. It holds up, man. And honestly, I think I mentioned to you earlier, like later on, especially there's some weird creatures when the daughter's on the run from the Cenobites, and I feel like a lot of that stuff I will see later in video games.
Yes.
Especially Doom. Yes. Like that imagery, I feel like, man, whoever was working on that stuff definitely was probably a fan of this Hellraiser film, man.
Well, you know, another thing that kind of hits heavy for me is this setting. You know what I'm saying? Like it's real condensed and confined, where the majority of this film takes place in this house. And unlike a lot of films, this was actually shot in this house. That's why when you look at the camera angles, it's always like one shot, one take kind of view. Obviously, because it was Clive Barker's first crack at it. But At the same time, they can't fit all that equipment in some of these small rooms, but it works. It kind of like it almost makes the house feel like a character in itself, like the same with what we get from like Amityville Horror or Poltergeist or something like that. You know what I mean? And it really just gives us that oh my gosh, this is going, and there's nowhere to go. Like all this crap is going on, you know, in this confined area.
And that door and never come back. I ain't saving nobody. If you in there, sorry, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, the thing that I like too is like, you know, it's the simplicity in it. Like they show that death is all around this place with the simple things, like the scene where there's like the maggots and the worms in the ashtray. There's dirt everywhere.
I mean, you know, I think that just was the result of like him just being dead. Like I mean, some of it was just decay and rot, and you know, he was gone. Frank is gone now, so everything he had laying around. Dude,
there were maggots in the ashtray, cigarette butts. I mean, they really overemphasize the fact that like death is around the corner. Bro. Yeah, that's
it's
true.
hard to let them things go. But I don't know, man. Like it's I definitely see the appeal to this, man. Like but I feel like, you know, later on they probably did more with this material, I think, than this initial film.
So much more.
We got the intro out the way. That's what I feel like this was done. But then later on, I think more creative filmmaking minds, you know, had to turn at it and put out more, you know, more impressive stuff to come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, dude, not for nothing. This franchise did spawn 10 films. 11 if you include the remake of the first one, which is very solid. Like, actually, the remake of Hellraiser 1 that's on Hulu now currently.
Yeah, I think that actually is a superior
better
film
than this.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times the remake, but like this remake, it's the same. It hits the same notes as like your Cape Fear or The Fly or something like that, where it's, you know, it takes something good and it makes it better. It elevates.
Honestly, I think that is an evergreen idea, man.
It really is.
This seeking pleasure thing, and then having this box be the representation of that, and it can go either way for you depending on what you want out of it, and I think that's amazing, man.
I mean, like I said, it's just like the genie lamp. Like, you know, depending on who finds the lamp depends on what they wish for. This box is the same thing with just a more you know, sadistic, darker approach. I mean, because it's, you know, it really lets you deep dive into your, you know, most internal secretive pleasures, and everybody's got them, but you know, they, you know, what they do with that power, if they get it, is kind of, you know. But also, you know, outside of that, with this setting, I do like the score. For me, I could tell out the gate that it was a familiar composer. It was Christopher Young, and he's actually the one who did Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, and that was my first Freddy experience. I saw that one before the first one.
Freddy 2, man.
Freddy Part 2, yeah, you got the body, I got the brains,
the
bus, everything. but the way, like, you know, just like in Freddy Part 2 that came out, I want to say in '85, and this came out in '87, or it could be '84, you know. But either which way, Freddy did come out first. But the same way that, like, that film has this score as like the pulse, this is the same way. He does that exactly the same way throughout this film. There's no like theme song. Like, every time Pinhead and the Cenobites come up, there's no, like, you know, or nothing like that going on, but there is this eerie music in the background. Sometimes it changes depending on the situation, but it really just kind of gets the heart pumping a little more and really intensifies what we're seeing on the screen. So I think he did a really good job, you know what I mean, as far as that goes.
Yeah, so what do you think, man? Conclusion, man? I think we can wrap this guy up.
Well, you gotta watch this one to make the rest of them make sense. You know what I'm saying? Just to give you the introduction of how this works. One thing I will say is the beginning of Hellraiser Part 2, Hellbound, pretty much picks up right where this one left off, where you see Larry that's possessed by Frank getting ripped apart, and then it kind of goes into, and that story hits a lot heavier because they lean more into Pinhead and the Cenobites. Those are the characters that people want to see, and you get a lot more of it as it goes. And the franchise really starts really deep diving into the S&M element and the body horror and all the craziness that comes with all of those aspects. But it's nice to know where it all started from, and that's what this film gives you. The rewatchability is not at the forefront here. You see it once, you've seen it enough.
I agree.
You know what I mean? But like I said, I mean, it's like, just like with comic books, you know what I'm saying? You can be a fan of whatever your favorite superhero is. It's even if you start on episode or issue 10, you still want to read that first issue, even though it might be just more filler and a little more explaining of what the origin is, just to make it all make sense later on down the line. That's what this film is, you know what I mean, to me personally.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, like I said, man, I don't think it aged very well, but, if you're going to be looking into the going deeper into this series, it's definitely, one you should check out to set it off. It has some pretty cool ideas, and it's not like it's going to eat up a huge chunk of your time.
It's only an hour and a half.
Yeah,
it's an hour and a half. So, and like I said, the franchise really starts to get better as you go. Like part 2 is a lot better than part 1, and then it progressively just goes deeper in this well of this concept, which for those that are into that, I mean, it really works.
Yeah, folks, but I think that's it. We can wrap this up, man. It's been another classic of Cinematics, man, and a month. Catch me at Monkey Blood on Twitter and Instagram. Follow the show at, I'm not even fucking with that. Follow us at Classes of Cinematics on Instagram. And I think that's it.
Bobby Blockbuster. You can catch me at Bobby Blockbuster 118 on Instagram.
All right, folks. I'm out.